Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is a custom video for M. All right, get comfortable. Let's go on one man's horological journey. As a U.S. expat living in Switzerland, I appreciate both your encyclopedic knowledge and insight about watches, and also your experience and perspective as an expat. Thanks for all the content when we're locked up for COVID. It's much appreciated. Here's the backstory and question that I would love your thoughts on. I currently have a 14060M, which I bought earlier this year for a slight premium over market value because it was full box and papers and totally unworn with stickers and a hang tag. I love the symmetry, the size, and the classic look, and the fact that every scratch will be mine. I opted for the flat 4 two-line version, which I prefer, and also because to me, it looks more like the old subs, which are, of course, gorgeous. The 5513, the 1680, etc. I have worn this every day since I got it earlier this year. I like the idea of this being my everyday watch. I could marry this one. Wow, M. A 14060M. No date sub. That's a beautiful watch, and it's all the more amazing because you got it box papers, unworn, full set, of course unpolished, stickered. This is also known as a new old stock piece, and that's a tough watch to find in that condition. And you gotta wonder what M paid for it, but I gotta say it's worth it, whatever he paid for it, because it's so hard to find a piece like that in that kind of condition. And it's interesting that he's wearing it. I couldn't wear a piece like that. It would go straight into the bank safe as a safe queen. And knowing me, I'd probably get sort of a beater 14060M to use. One to hoard, one to use. That's just the way I do it. But somebody would wear that piece in the future anyway, so it might as well be M. And like he said, every scratch is going to be his. It's an amazing piece, a great first start to collecting watches. Wow. And I love the history of pre-owned watches. It's true, but there's also purity. And you can make a history, but you can't recapture purity. And he'll make his history with this watch, which right off the bat is as pure as they come. So they don't get much better than this. I also recently purchased a Rolex for my wife, a Datejust 31 silver dial, white gold fluted bezel at our local authorized dealer. As we closed the deal on the watch, I somehow managed to get on the wait list for a 126710 BLRO. That's the 40mm ceramic Pepsi GMT Master 2. The reason I chose that model is 100% because I panicked when our salesperson asked me which I'd like to be on the list for. And M continues, remembered the GMT Pepsi as very much in demand. So I went with that. Worst case, I would make some money. In honesty, I don't care much for the watch. But then again, I've never worn one. It's possible I would. For me, the ceramic models just don't excite me the way the old steel ones with the jangly bracelets do. Funny how all these specific and very important preferences emerge in the hobby. Now, plot twist, and I didn't even realize that until I got to his questions, but he has the BLRO. All right, it came through, he has it. As we'll see, he's not quite sure what to do with it, but guys, this is a perfect two-piece collection. He's got neo-vintage in the 14060. He's got modern in the BLRO. He's got a simple minimalist watch in the sub. He's got a more complex function-rich watch in the BLRO. Diver, GMT function, oyster bracelet, Jubilee bracelet, pre-ceramic, ceramic, all black, blue and red, regular dial, maxi dial. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this when it comes to Steel Professional watches. Two pieces, so different, but so sporty and usable. And he panicked. He chose the right one. Personally, I would probably go with a B, L, and R, but the BLRO is really the one to choose. And he did this correctly. I mean, he bought first and thought about it later. Now, he doesn't seem like he is enjoying this GMT as much as his sub yet, all right? There's something to be said for the aesthetics of the pre-ceramic. I totally agree with M in that regard. But perhaps we can convince him that the GMT is something he should appreciate having in his two-piece collection. Now that I have my 14060M, naturally the next thing to do is get another Rolex, right? I'm truly enjoying being a one-watch person, but I also like the idea of a watch that is worn on vacations and other special fun times, a celebration watch of sorts. In considering this, I came across the white dial 114300, and that's the 39mm white dial discontinued Oyster Perpetual. And it shocked me how much I love its simplicity and symmetry. Seeing a pattern here, he notes? He likes minimalist, clean, balanced dials, doesn't he? It also seems that it would be as happy on a beach as it would at a wedding. I like the versatility and timelessness. All right, let's forget about his GMT. So he has the 14060M no date sub, and he's thinking of adding the 39mm Oyster Perpetual, the 114300. That's an interesting watch, and didn't have much of a lifespan. The 39mm Oyster Perpetuals, they went from 36 to 39 just for a short time, and then it bumped up to 41. Now, is the 41 and the 39 almost identical in size? Probably. All right, there's probably just a hair's breadth of difference, but on paper, you know, 39 and 41 is completely different, and you got the white dial. All right, and that was the 39mm Oyster Perpetual to have, and the short run and interesting dial make, I think, for a very collectible Oyster Perpetual. Probably one of the most collectible Oyster Perpetuals because of the shortness of the run. That would be a fantastic watch to have, to add, but no date. Now, it doesn't seem like he needs a date, and he seems like he is enjoying and focusing on the aesthetics of the watch. And I think there are people that do that. They approach watches mainly in terms of aesthetics. And then there's others that approach things mainly in terms of functions. Now, throughout the years, I've come to realize I'm more of a function guy. Don't get me wrong, I love aesthetics, but if I have to choose, I lean towards functions, okay? And aesthetics, while it's something I keep an eye on and appreciate, it's something that I can learn to adapt to. I can learn to see the beauty in a watch, all right? So he seems to be a different kind of watch guy and approaches things more from an aesthetic point of view. But it makes me wonder, does he ever want more tools on his watch? Does he ever look down for the date and feel unsatisfied? Does he ever long for a fourth hand, a GMT function, a chronograph? Is it all about aesthetics for him? It's interesting. Only he can answer that question. What about you guys? Are you a 50-50 kind of guy? Do you lean towards one side? I mean, I think we all may try to view ourselves as appreciating aesthetics and functionality equally, but I think one emerges as more of a driving force in your horological preferences. So what about you, viewer? Speaking of dates, one thing I've missed from my old Hamilton Khaki King, my first real watch, is a date window. The dilemma. I'm not a Cyclops guy. This, of course, led me to the older steel Sea Dwellers, which would look a lot like my 14060M with a date, making my everyday tool watch even more useful. All right, so he does miss the date. Now, clearly, he's a man primarily guided by his aesthetic sense when it comes to the watches he chooses. He's more of a aesthetically guided person versus one guided by the functions a watch has to offer. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say he's 80 to 85% all about aesthetics, but there's a good 20 to 15% that, again, misses the date, and he brings up exactly the watch I would have brought up, the 16600 40mm pre-ceramic Sea Dweller. It's got the date, but no Cyclops. Of course, if you wanted ceramic, you could go with a 11600, the 40mm ceramic Sea Dweller before they switched, and the Sea Dweller grew to 43mm and started having a Cyclops on the crystal. All right, so looking at the 16600, it doesn't have a Cyclops. It has the functionality of having a date, but here's the thing. That date window does break up the symmetry of the dial, the balance of the dial, and it's not as egregious as a 16610 date sub, for example, but it's there. And so someone who's primarily into the aesthetics and balance of the no date sub, it's a sacrifice I don't think they'd be willing to make, all right? And I don't think that M should do this. If he wants to add this piece, okay, all right? And I think it would be a great piece to add, but never for a moment would I consider getting rid of his 14060M. I mean, he bought that in perfect condition. That would be insanity to sell that watch, all right? So if you're an aesthetically minded kind of person, I think the 16600 Sea Dweller is a good option. You get that date, and it doesn't infringe upon the aesthetics so much, but it's not perfect, all right? It's close, but no cigar. So I would consider adding a 16600. It's aesthetically similar enough to your no date sub that you might not want to, but is different enough that is justifiable in terms of the function and what exactly it is, the size, the sort of the persona of the watch. So add, but don't even think about selling that 14060M. It's a very special watch you've got. We come to the final chapter, and we're going to continue that in the next video. And that has to do with his grail. Now, you'd think he already has his grail on his wrist with the 14060M. But no, as we'll see, there is another that he's thinking about, and it's quite a piece. Stay tuned for that. Let M know what you think so far about his horological journey. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.